And we are live. Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with
Cynthia Marie,
Kai Norman,
and Ryan Omega.
Woo.
Woo, yeah. It's been a while. And
Yep.
And what are we drinking today?
Oh God.
I'm drinking kombucha.
I intended to actually make some tea for myself and I promptly forgot, and now we're recording. I can't actually boil a kettle because it'll be noisy while we're recording.
Oh.
So I am going to have to suffer tealess for our fans. This is what I will do for you.
Oh no, Kai, no.
Oh, you poor baby.
Let's consider it penance because I haven't been around for the last couple of episodes, which I do apologize about.
I don't think you need to apologize as much. We've just all of us have been busy, and like we are very happy and fortunate that our audience knows that. So thank you so much for your patience as we try to put out more content.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
I mean, like we have Sin doing some amazing stuff with Vampire, right?
Yeah, just got back from WonderCon last week, and that was an amazing experience.
Was that your first convention where you got to show off some of your, well, not really show off, but you know what I mean? You got to talk to a bunch of people and you got to do panels and show off like your knowledge and your skills and all that kind of stuff in a more live setting, huh?
Yep, that was the first time I'd ever been on a panel, and I was so nervous. Nothing like having an audience react to your facial expressions on things that people say.
Right. And then Ryan, you've been having some pretty eventful things going over the last month, haven't you?
Yeah. That thing is called Blank Slate.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, thank you. And we just concluded the first season. We found out that someone here is the murderer.
Not it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. People, you need to watch this show before you continue because you'll get spoilers otherwise. So here is your chance. You're losing it in 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, spoilers. Yeah, I didn't even know I was killing people, which was kind of great. That was an experience. And I love the name that one of the viewers gave my character as well, which was Gideon.
Yeah, Prince Gideon. It's I'm very fortunate that our audience actually picks really, really cool names for,
right? Like,
for
you know, Captain Buttcheeks or something like that. It's like there's a lot of potential for bad. Especially because the whole format that you've kind of devised, viewers get to pay money to like add within reason memories to characters so they remember certain details about certain things, and that helps spin the narrative. You get to gift magical items to characters, almost like a Hunger Games kind of like, you know, sending in resources to help people, which is kind of amusing.
I spent so much money.
I know you did, and thank you. You influenced so much of the story from not even on stage.
It was such a blast to watch you guys. Both of you were so incredibly engaging and so much fun to watch. It was awesome to be in the audience with you guys. Like, Kai, you had me the whole frickin' time. Had no idea.
Well, to be fair, especially because of the format of everything, all of us were playing in certain styles that we felt were appropriate to the character. And I think part of the trick there, making a point that we all could imagine ourselves as the murderer, so we weren't innocent. We all just had different like viewpoints and different reasons why we might have done it. And that's some of the briefing that Ryan gave it to us, because I didn't even know I killed the Queen until a couple of hours before the start of the 4th episode.
Yeah, and that was originally on purpose because I didn't want anyone to start overthinking about how to play their characters. But I also love that in this case, morality is very, very great. Situations will make people do things they wouldn't normally do, but they all have to live with it. And that ended up being the story of Blank Slate. And I expected to run a murder mystery, not a morality play with Game of Thrones. But
well,
it was a thing.
I think if you had tried to run it like a morality play of Game of Thrones, it might have failed, to be honest. I think it happening organically like this is a far better experience for everyone involved.
This show really would not have been this incredible without my entire cast and the audience. The audience picked very key moments when to suggest items and when to suggest memories. I realized that 2 of the deaths were because of the well-timed memories and items that were planted.
Planted!
Yeah, like someone here who planted it at a certain time.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No.
Oh, we got music now?
What on earth?
What is it?
Is that a new ringtone there, Ryan?
No, it's not me.
It wasn't me.
Oh, that's so weird. The only thing recording right now is my laptop right now, so weird.
Listeners of all pronouns, now you have it. We have ghost music playing. All right, so that is what Ryan has been up to recently, and I myself have been, as many of you know, running Dystopia Rising Northern California. I had to take a little bit of a step back from the podcast because I got up to my 6th game, and it's a monthly game, so that was my half a year of running games, which kind of blew my mind how quickly it snuck up on me. It's been a total blast, and I'm very, very grateful for the people that are standing behind me when I get to do all of this, and sometimes standing in front of me, to be honest. We kind of all lift each other up, and it's kind of amazing. I will be absolutely referencing some of my experiences with, managing the community and managing the player base, or just kind of, it's a case of, I'll hit on it later, but I've got a lot of opinions about our topic because of how I've learned how to run some aspects of a LARP so far, and I feel like 6 months ago, I wouldn't be nearly as aware of some of these factors as I am now. So I'm really looking forward to the topic. You guys looking forward to it?
Yeah. I'm intrigued to hear your guys' opinion on stuff.
One other thing that we need to do, because we traditionally tend to do this, shout outs. If you have any shout outs that you want to give to anyone out there.
Oh man. Give me a second. Kai, you got them?
I want to do a shout out to 2 people, Courtney and Wes. Courtney was an excellent kind of foil for my character in the game. And though our characters barely talked, it was really interesting seeing that kind of like Game of Thrones vibe of like 2 or 3 different factions kind of like moving along and obtaining objectives and getting things done. And the viewers were watching all of the puzzle pieces and the chess pieces get put into place. And then suddenly everything was flying out the window as something new developed. And it was just like, that was really impressive. And then with that, Wes was also, a treat to engage with or work alongside. He had a lot of great ideas while we were playing, and again, he was one of the people that was just a delight to watch because we didn't really get to collide our characters much. But him and Courtney were kind of like freaking all-stars, just kicking some ass on the show. Aside from obviously all of our player characters who were playing with amnesia, which is not an easy thing to play around with. It's very hard to actually get involved with story that easily, other than just asking questions when you have amnesia. But they very quickly defined personalities for themselves, which was kind of amazing.
Sin?
So my shout out is, I have a couple. Like, shout out to like your guys' whole cast, because like I said, being an audience member was like an absolute delight. So congratulations, blank slate. All of you guys are amazing. And the crew for like, there was a lot of tech stuff that went on. And I'm sure you guys probably heard more, obviously, on your end, but being in the audience, like, the crew was just phenomenal trying to help us out and stuff. So awesome to you guys. But my shout out's actually going to go to Vince Queso, who plays, he plays Daffodil on LA by Night, or better known as Greg Demetrios, FBI agent, who is also Nellie's ghoul. He was so fabulous at WonderCon. When I told him I was nervous about doing the panel and kind of getting his ideas on how to combat that. Now, like, mind you, I've performed in front of like thousands of people as being a dancer. So being the first time actually speaking in front of people, like, it kind of freaked me out. So he was just great about like giving me some like coaching guidelines. And then when he stood up to surprise the audience, because he was in the audience to play with us as well, he went to the audience mic. He was just so engaging that I totally forgot that the entire audience was there. And it was just like me and him, like we were back in the studio. So thanks, Vince, for everything. And I hope that we get to play D&D soon.
Nice. My shout out is, obviously shout out to my casting crew of Blank Slate, especially to Knox, who had a lot of faith in my idea, and which became our idea, but like it had to start somewhere. And thank you, Knox, for trusting me with this idea. To CW Fox, oh my God, the number of ideas that came from his brain that made the game and the show a whole lot better. And he thought about tension, and he thought about how items can interact, and a lot of audience interaction. Like, some of those things were last minute ideas that came from him. Like, I definitely came up with the world, but he came up with how do you make that more engaging with the audience and between players, and used a lot of his knowledge of people dynamics and gaming dynamics to help create and help shape the interaction to make them all meaningful for the world. Like, I literally could not have done this without CW. My shout out, my player shout out, is going to go to Christine Hasse, who played Unhinged. I will always say she is probably one of the best theatrical actresses I have ever seen on stage, which is one of the reasons why she was the second person I ever cast on this show. And her strategy, but also playing like a unhinged character who is crazy, but also is determined and has a compelling backstory, made her definitely one of the crowd favorites, like, of all the Amnesiacs. And her final action when she was begging for her life, and if you want to see that, you have to turn into Blank Slate, because oh my God, what she did just blew my mind and made me have to rethink all of season 2 by her one declaration. But I think it's going to be awesome. So, our topic for today has been motivated by things within the LARP community. I think it would be good for us to just talk about this topic. And the topic is how to ask for help. It's a topic that spans both in character for within game, and then as well as out of character as people and a community. I have no idea where to start. Does anybody have? Yeah?
I have an idea, actually.
Sure.
So, knowing the game that you are getting into or that you are part of, I think, is a very important aspect there. When you play a LARP, unless it's kind of a one-shot or you're going to one of those big events where you've got like thousands of people, or and if you, by contrast, you've got the one-shots where it might be like maybe a few of your friends accompanying you to go do something unique, like the College of Wizardry School, or like the Witcher boot camp kind of experience that are in Europe. Those are things that you're going well out of your comfort zone and traveling normally to go to. So either very, very big events where there's so many people that you can feel kind of a little lost, or events where you don't really know anyone apart from maybe one or two friends. Those are two examples of LARPs. The third example is your regular, like, monthly or twice a month or maybe once every other month. It's your regular LARP that you like to play locally, and you start to develop more of a connection with the actual closer community with it. And so out of those three, I've got the most experience with the third. And Dystopia Rising NorCal is very much what I've been trying to build, with kind of like a close community of people working together and caring about each other. And the very first thing that I thought about was having clear expectations and like a very strong set of, like rules. And a strong set of rules doesn't necessarily have to be something that is, a tyrannical rule. A strong set of rules are not something that push people around. It just helps people understand that these are our expectations, and if you do not follow these expectations, more often than not, those expectations are things like treating people decently and, not touching them unless they give you consent. Or if you intend to engage in like romantic role play, maybe you should ask with them first just to make sure that they're comfortable. Those types of basic core elements that at least I have personally really appreciated being a part of the community handbook for the game I run, have really helped kind of set the tone of the game. And so assuming that you're coming into a game that already has these kinds of rules in them, that's immediately a good potential support net that is kind of waiting for you there.
Yeah.
Would you agree? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
No, it's good. I'm just trying to figure out how do
okay.
follow up with that.
All right. Well, here's a follow-up element for it. So when it comes to those three community or those three examples of LARPs that you might encounter, one, you're very much kind of alone. Another one, the number of your friends who are there with you is extremely small compared to the overall number of people attending. If you've got like 100 friends, obviously these numbers are just bullshit that I'm throwing around, but if you've got 100 friends at an event that has 2,000 people, 5% of the people there are people you know. And while America doesn't have LARPs with those kinds of numbers, some countries and some games do have numbers near that or at that amount. So it's easy to kind of feel a little lost in that regard, I think. Likewise, the like stepping out of your normal kind of local bubble and going off to a game that you've never been to before. I feel those happen the most in the kind of like one-shot experience, kind of premium LARPs, the ones that you're willing to, fly to another country to go play that one-time experience of. Or if you're playing in a network game where you've traveled like, maybe 300 miles, 500 miles, 1,000 miles, or the other freaking coast of the country. I don't know. It's really up to you. I feel like some of the people that I'm talking to right now, I know, Ryan, you've traveled really far to go to networked games before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just haven't been so recently, but yeah.
And Sin, have you ever traveled a pretty far distance?
I would say San Francisco. When I went to Kubla was probably the furthest I've gone for a LARP.
Nice. But even then, it's outside of your normal kind of like area of comfort. You can't just be like, I'm out, I'm going home, and get your stuff and just drive home, and then you're like, right. I'm back in my fortress of whatever, nerditude or whatever. So, all of these different types of LARP have strengths and weaknesses, and when it comes to self-care. And knowing to ask for help, I think all three of them can benefit very greatly from you as a player thinking about what kind of support you can get at that game. Yeah. And even if it requires a little bit of like sending an email to the event organizers and being like, hey, if worst case happens, who's a contact point that I can communicate with? especially if you're going to a different country where, it's actually quite possible that some of the people there don't speak your language. One of the largest LARPs in Canada is called Bicoline, and that game has a primarily French language that people play because it's in the more French speaking area of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, knowing your point of contact, and then knowing if you feel you can actually trust the game to look after you. That's something I fight for very, very hard. I try to be as approachable as possible, not just because it's helpful for my business, because I want people to tell me if something's on fire or someone's been hurt, or God forbid, someone has actually been assaulted or abused or is being bullied by someone else. But genuinely because I can't stand bullying, and I can't stand the idea of people not having fun when I can potentially help them. There is such a difference between kind of self-inflicting yourself in positions. Like if you play a wallflower and you just don't engage with anyone, you're not going to have as much fun at a LARP. Versus trying to get outside and interact with people and engage a little bit. But if you meet someone that's being a total asshole to you both in and out of character, that's not okay. So I would say one of the really important steps for looking after yourself, how to ask for help, is knowing who to ask for help.
And I'd like to add on also being able to work up the courage to ask for help.
Yes.
I think a lot of us have it in our head to, hey, I need help, but don't have the voice that comes out. I know that happened to me at Twin Mass last game.
Mm-hmm.
I dealing with a lot of personal issues, and I went to game and I notified my friends, hey, I'm dealing with stuff. So if you see me by myself, come and grab me because I may not be in the best headspace. And I actually found myself alone quite a bit. I cried in my tent for a little while about it. I got out of my tent. I found a fight. And lo and behold, Kai, you were standing next to me when we started fighting. So without even knowing it, you actually pulled me out of my headspace.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry that you were having a moment like that too, though. That's not enjoyable. I think one of the important things about LARP is getting a chance to kind of step away from things like that and escape a little.
Yeah. So the thing that I guess point being that my friends that I did tell that was going on, they were all wrapped up in their own game. And when I was feeling like that, I didn't want to disturb somebody's game. So instead I hid in my tent, and that's probably not the best way to handle it. So when you find your voice and you're ready, go find that friend that makes you feel better about yourself and just sit with them. Even if you can't talk, just hearing their story and what's going on with them may snap you out of it. So first thing is find your voice to find help.
Last Twin Mask was the first time I ever had a full-blown panic attack in the middle of game. And it took me a while to even acknowledge that was happening, but I just remember that clear moment of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I could not articulate words, and I began hyperventilating. And I remember there was just really surreal moment when someone was taking a picture of me, and I said, I can't think right now. I think I'm having a panic attack, and it just kind of came out of me. And there was a point where I was just so uncomfortable that my brain went on automatic. And I was glad that people found me and took me aside. They got people, they sat me down, there was always someone next to me the entire time while I was going through this, because it was also super unusual. I'm in my home game of Twin Mask. This should not be happening. But it was a case where a series of unfortunate events happened, one after the other, a bunch of frustration, and then my brain, the thing that triggered it was losing Sicariel's book that was given to him by his brother Shakes, which had a lot of my stuff in it. and my brain just got stuck.
And to clarify, you lost your book in real life, not in game. It was more like the actual prop went missing, right?
Right, the actual prop went missing, which had sentimental value as well as it had all my stuff in it. I mean, I didn't care about the gold or whatever. I cared that Jordan gave it to Ryan in real life as well as Shakespeare gave it to his brother Sicario. Like, I wanted that book back. And also that book grounded me because it meant something. The moment I lost it, I broke. It is very hard for me to ask for help. And I admit doing this topic makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but it is very necessary because there is a point where everybody's doing their own thing. And if you don't signal or say something, only someone whose job is attentive enough to make sure that you're okay, because they might be handling other things, may not know to come to you. So it's not just a matter of just being courageous enough, as Sin said. There is a bit of courage. In fact, there is a lot of courage in admitting that you need help. We know that sometimes in our culture, asking for help is very stigmatized and thought of as being weak, rather than thinking that this is necessary. Like, even cell phones need to be recharged. The human brain and the human body, we're playing a game and we care for each other in a community. Like, why wouldn't we try to take care of each other? So if you feel like you're alone in that, you have to hopefully remember that your brain is lying to you. Like, you are surrounded by people, whether it's like 10 or 20, 30, or like 300. It is very easy to feel lonely, but if people know that you're not well, they will help you. They will come and make sure that you're at least comfortable and at least have a place where you can feel safe and say words. And sometimes you just have to talk it out, and you will realize that once you let that balloon deflate of all that anxiety and stress, you can breathe again. And I'm very fortunate that that LARP is a community that I have been part of for many years. Especially proud of being in places like Twin Mask and DR NorCal, where people are caring and care for each other as a community, not just a role-playing community, but a community of humans, being humane. It's awesome and it's wonderful.
So I have a question here. A lot of what you've said there, Ryan, makes me think back again to the case of like finding your voice, as Sin was saying. So I feel like a really good point on that is, how do you find your voice? How do you talk when, I mean, like, we think about some of the more darker aspects of life. There is the majority of people who have been physically or emotionally abused never come forward. There's a lot of that types of thing that happen to people that can really deeply affect people. And it's almost human nature to not want to tell anyone. I don't know if necessarily human nature is the right word, but I feel, at least as you were saying, in our society, kind of expressing feelings past a certain level can be perceived as weakness. And that is something that has to be fought, which is interesting, because someone who is worried about being weak, at least subconsciously, might have a lack of strength to actually push past that kind of room. It's hard for me to articulate, to be honest, but I think the right word is the dichotomy there is kind of a little mind-blowing. But how can we, as individuals, or how can an event, or how can a group of friends help each other find their voice when they need to actually say help?
Wow.
I mean, I have a couple of different thoughts on a few different levels. I think, Ryan, you touched on this for a moment, but the idea of grounding. is something that I've been learning to do. I actually have a coin that was given to me by someone when I was going through a really dark time, and I usually kind of play with that in my hand. So on a personal level, find an item or something that allows you to disconnect from what is going on in your head. So I usually push the coin in my hand as hard as I can to kind of snap me out of it. Mm-hmm. So that's really trying to get you to focus and be like, okay, this is something that I can talk through. And then I think it's about finding that individual that makes you, or whomever, a group of people that makes you feel a little bit warmer inside, and just kind of tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I need you right now. That's what I would do, at least. And that's kind of what I did in my situation when I was upset with what was going on. I found someone, and we walked off and just sat and chatted pretty much the whole night. It was quite nice.
I think for me, when it comes to trying to find my own voice, part of trying to find your own voice sometimes isn't a voice. Sometimes it's a how do you kind of break your mind, or not break your mind, but break your situation to the point where you can shift and maneuver and go on. So when I get really, really angry, oddly enough, it depends which character I'm playing in a LARP. If it's Sicario, he will get angry real quick. And people have seen me blow up, like was helpful sometimes. It's walk away from the situation. It doesn't matter if you didn't say goodbye. It's like, nope, I gotta go. Sometimes you just need to have a little bit of that selfishness. And then sometimes, like my demon of sloth contemplate, I was like, I'm going to bed. And, something that just breaks you out of whatever the situation is. Because sometimes it's not a voice. Sometimes it's a movement. If I'm not comfortable, I will sit in one place and I will barely move. Yep. And sometimes it's the getting up and walking around and even pacing, which will get me to start talking, which will have me talk out my frustration, and then I will feel better. But sometimes I could see it in someone's body language. They're like a stone, as if they're afraid to move, as they're afraid for something to break. Like, movement sometimes helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts that have actually been kind of adjusted slightly after you guys gave yours. One of the things I think that everyone should do is look in on themselves a little bit, and just kind of have some introspection and try to understand the difference between a need versus a want. I want my character to be rich. I want my character to have gold coins and magical items and things like that. I need to drink water. I need to remember to eat at least 3 times a day when I'm playing my LARP. I need to remember to actually sleep. Those are the important kind of differences there. I want my character to, succeed at this particular scene, or like get their revenge, or be the hero, or things like that. Separating the differences from need and want is very important, and it becomes a little more blurry sometimes, especially when you're right in the middle of the endorphins of having a great time at the game, or you're getting kind of hammered on by the bad things, and you're feeling yourself kind of slipping down. And that's when the self-reflection and looking in on yourself is pretty important. You can take that moment to kind of work out what you need versus what you want. And if there's something that you need, think about how you can actually get that. I know that sounds incredibly redundant, of like, figure out if you need something and then go get it. It's that easy, but it's also so much more difficult, especially in the moment. So remembering the difference between a need and a want, and then kind of thinking at the direction that you can go for that help. Some intense LARPs and haunted houses as well have like decompression chambers. They have rooms where you can just go and hang out and cool out and just like relax on a beanbag chair and be just chilled out. And someone might bring you a cup of tea and you're gonna feel a bit better later, you know? Other LARPs, you have your friend network of friends, and I really do resonate with the I'm worried about disturbing my friends, because my friends have just as much right to have fun at the game as I do, and if I'm not having fun, why should I drag them down with me and pull them out of game? So that kind of thought process goes through my head at times. However, ask yourself another question instead. If one of your friends came to you saying, "Hey, I need your help. I'm bleeding like crazy," in a literal or emotional sense, you know? But if one of your friends comes to you and says, "This is serious, I need you," remember, referencing back to the difference between needs and wants. If your friend says that, are you really going to turn them away? Most people, no. And because most people are not going to do that, I know I would never turn away one of my friends if they tell me they need me. And then think about that. Does that make you a good friend? Does that make you someone that you would like to have as a friend? Treat others how you would like to be treated. And then look at that potentially in the reverse, where if you are willing to do these things for your friends, then trust your friends, because a lot of asking for help involves trust. Trust your friends to understand that when you tell them that you desperately need help with something, that they will actually give you that time or attention or any of those types of things, you know?
Yeah. When it also comes to asking for help, you shouldn't wait until it gets drastically extreme where you feel like you have the permission to ask for help. Like, don't wait until your leg is actually broken to ask for help. It's like, oh, it's desperate enough that I'm now okay to ask for help. A lot of us think in terms of physical ailments, especially when we're at buffer LARPs, right? So whenever, like, if you hurt yourself or you get accidentally beamed in the eye, we call for a hold, and we feel it's perfectly acceptable to ask for that hold because we think there's a physical safety issue, which makes sense. But if you drop your glasses, they're your glasses, and even though they may not be, like, it is still a physical part of you, and you're like, you feel guilty for calling a hold for looking for glasses. I think the rest of us would be like, no, please find your glasses so that we don't accidentally step on them and break them. Make sure that you allow yourself that if in the case that you feel like you need help, but you don't think it's bad enough, the moment you even thought you need help, go ask for help. After the last incident, when possible, and I'm just going to casually either go to logistics because there's a place that I can talk to or people who I can talk to, or one of my friends is like, "Hey, Kai, Sin, like if you have a moment, I would like to talk." And I'm not talking about in character. I would still say that in character, but like out of character, it's like, "Hey, do you mind if I just hang around you for a while? I don't have a particular reason, but let's role play as if it were anyway." And generally, like if someone asks me of that, I'm like, "Yeah, please come hang and we'll drink," you know?
Yep, without a doubt, I would do the same thing. Even if I don't know the person and they're like, "Hey, I need to be around someone," like I will find some sort of reason for you to be with my character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the example you gave, Ryan, like you talk about, like losing your glasses or something like that. It definitely extends even to the emotional side of things. If it's not something that's physically inside you or physically on you that you need to get back, that's okay too. If you're playing an intense game and you're getting overloaded, and if you're having some kind of bad episode of something, or you're starting to dissociate because you're like really stressed out about something, or there are 101 reasons, and I can't tell you the individual reasons. That is very much on you as a person, working out your needs versus your wants. If you're having a really bad moment of anxiety, then it's perfectly okay to basically be like, you know what? I'm getting a little overloaded. I need to step out. I don't know if every LARP has elements like this, but one of the things that I appreciate about Dystopia Rising is that it has that caveat. It says you are the final arbiter on what your comfort levels are, and if there's a scene that you need to excuse yourself from, do it. It is an opt-in, opt-out experience. If you are in a scene that you cannot handle, then walk away, and that's fine. And if someone says, whoa, 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 we were right in the middle of killing your character, it doesn't mean that you're removed from consequence, but you at least in Dystopia Rising, you can just put your hand on your head and you go, yep, you got me, buddy. I'm totally dead, but I'm freaking out in real life right now, and I need to take a breather. So give me a moment. And that is totally fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I completely agree there.
One of the important foundations of a LARP, in my opinion, is establishing that we are all equally here to have a good time and try and make sure that other people also have a good time. We've referenced it before, the 10-foot rule, right? Mm-hmm. If someone's within 10 feet of you, try to make sure that they're getting engaged in what you're doing. If you can, like not every situation is going to let that happen, but especially if you, a lot of American LARPs recently have been really capitalizing on showing like a physical distinction for players that are brand new to the game, and they'll wear like little blue armbands to represent that they are a part, like they're a brand new member of the community. And the intent with that is twofold. One, it means that mods treat them a little differently. For example, there might be NPCs going out looking for players of that power level to take them on a unique quest with a bunch of other newbies, and it's specifically statted for them to have a great fun time and not get steamrolled by some super powerful existing character. The other reason is so those super powerful existing characters can see that you're a brand new character, and they can help you out. They can give you some of their hand-me-downs, and they can pick you up as a squire, or they can teach you something, or they can take you under their wing, or interact with you. Or even one of the things that I am the most fond of as a story that one of our guests previously, Liam Neary, has told me, is that his character, by roleplay, is afraid of certain people. Those characters might be people who just the first time he meets them, they act like a fucking badass, and they're like, if you look at me funny again, I will kill you. And his character, even though he knows his character has the stats to go, nah, fuck off, I can just sneeze at you and you're dead. Instead, he treated it like a real-life environment where this guy from nowhere just went, if you look at me again, I'll fucking kill you. And his character turned his eyes away, looked at the ground and went, I'm sorry, sir, and backed away. Like,
Aww.
that's not that is an example of, I'm not saying that should be the norm, and I'm not saying that new players should go off and pick fights with old players and expect that. But there are lots of ways of handling these kinds of environments and things like that. And I really do like the idea of this blue band system for representing in a couple of games. And there's other games that use a different system as well, but you get the idea. The important foundation, though, is that a game having a foundation that everyone is here to have a good time and look after each other is super important, in my opinion. And I would absolutely 100% say that those strong expectations and the strong emphasis on that foundation point is why my game has been so healthy in my experiences. The players of my game, and I'm not saying this as a gloating thing, I'm just so proud of them. They are so incredibly wholesome that we had the day after the event, we had like a goth night at a club. And the club was in San Francisco called Death Guild, and we went there en masse. There were like 30 or 40 of us that were just LARPers that showed up. It was great. And the whole thing that all of my wonderful community started doing when they got drunk, they started dancing with each other, they were super chill with each other, and they started gushing their hearts out about how much they appreciate each other.
Aww.
Right? And that blows me away. That is amazing. And I love that they are so happy for that. There are various different organizations in like factions and organizations within my game. One of them is the Black Market. The Black Market is where bad characters get to hang out and be bad characters. Most of them have had conversations in the Black Market chat group that I started about expectations and things like that, and a lot of them kind of giving consent to the levels of antagonism that group will do upon themselves because they're playing bad guys, and some of them want to just be a bad guy against NPCs. Other are comfortable being the bad guy or being picked on by a bad guy. So, kind of bad guy on bad guy kind of plot where two players are like trying to screw each other over or cheat each other or steal from each other or do those types of things. And they have these open, honest communications about it. They don't necessarily say, hey, and 3 hours into the next game, I'm planning on stabbing your character in the kidneys. It's way more just like establishing boundaries and talking about what people are looking for their characters, and kind of more as a player expressing like, hey, I'm comfortable with the idea of this type of roleplay. If any of you plan to jump up behind my character and break their leg and yell at them a bunch, I'm super into it.
Yeah.
But once again, that's an example of healthy gameplay. Because with healthy gameplay, almost anything can happen. Like with good, clear consent, you're allowed to do so much, but the consent and the clear element of that is important. And okay, so do we have, I know I've rambled on. I have another point to move on to after this. I'm sorry. But I don't want to talk about that until we finish talking about healthy elements at game versus the support network between games.
I do have one thing that I do as a player, especially in Twin Mask.
Yeah.
So I kind of started this little thing where if you're a new player and you want a reason to talk to my character, it's a little code sentence that it goes, I heard you are a person to get to know. So when someone says that to me, it doesn't matter who they are or what origin they came from, especially if they're a new player, I will find a reason to talk to you and hang out with you. And I offer that because I realize people may not know certain people and they feel nervous to approach anybody. But this is kind of my code word to new players, hey, you want to role play with me? Here's it's almost like having one of Kai's referral coupons, basically. But it's for role play, and it's actually great. It's actually kind of fun. Sarah came up to me as I think Vasya from I think it's Paradox. I don't remember. I'm bad. Bastion. That's it. Bastion. And she came up to me and said, I heard you are a person to get to know. And so I began to go, oh, hi, I'm the Archduke. And we start talking, and she said, oh, I'm a lady from Bastion. And I'm like, wait, you're a lady from I have never met one. Oh, my God. And I start turning to someone. It's like, have you met a lady from Bastion? It's like, this is the first time I met one.
I like that.
And so I start making a big deal about the fact that I have never met someone, a noble from that area. And that she gets to like have this little bit of a smile on her face as I make a big deal out of her. And I'm talking about her with other people. I'm like, no, let's walk and talk. Let's have a drink.
You know? Ryan, that is exact. I mean, I feel that is far more of a parallel where, you know, like some character threatens Liam's character and Liam goes, oh my God, you scare me. And from that point on, has always referred to that character as like sir, and has given him distance and things like that. While you had a brand new player come up to you, or a brand new character come up to you and be like, I'm a lady of this land. And rather than you like kind of measuring them on like abilities and like experience points, you measured them on a more of an element of, I don't know who you are. I don't know how powerful you are. And so I'm going to treat you with the respect that you deserve regardless. And viewing it much more of an open breathing world rather than a collection of stats that you're potentially facing off against that could either help you or hinder you. Yeah, so I feel like you kind of done pretty much the same thing as Liam to a degree. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, I agree. We just took it in different routes.
Same concept, different application.
Exactly.
Sin, do you have any other thoughts about LARP inside the game environment? Ways to kind of make sure that you ask for help or stay safe or things like that?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it, and it's actually, I'm probably going to double back a question to you, Kai. But you mentioned how can your organization help you in sense. So we've talked about your fun network, we talked about yourself and how you can help yourself out, but how does your organization, your LARP, be able to help you with these certain situations? Like, I'm brand new to staff on Twidmass, so I'm still learning all the things about what an organization does. But in your experience, Kai, have you had a player completely lose it or look like they're going to lose it or something? How did your organization cope with these type of issues?
I have had a couple. So I don't talk about it a lot, but I've definitely had to tell. Even in the six games of now 7 games that I have run, so half a year or so that I've been running Dystopia Rising NorCal, I have had to ban maybe twice that number of people. I've had to just kind of formally or informally been like, hey, don't come back, or hey, don't come. And a lot of it is active participation in managing your community. If you have someone who is a member of your community and there is someone that they have a restraining order against, that one's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Right.
But obviously things start to become a bit more nuanced with that. The most important thing about having what was the word that you used, Sin?
Your organization. How does the organization support?
So as an organization, the most important thing that you need to have with your players is trust. I mentioned about you being able to trust your friends to listen to you when you say the difference between a need and a want. An organization really needs your trust, and if they're doing things properly, they will be doing things to try and earn and maintain your trust. I really do care about looking after my players, and I need them to tell me when someone is pushing boundaries or breaking rules or making people uncomfortable, because if someone's being problematic, I want to be able to approach them before things get bad, before a line is grievously crossed, because that way I can give them the opportunity for corrective action and avoid mistakes happening. That said, there is definitely the element where there are some people who come to games just to cause problems. Just like there are people who go to a restaurant or go to a bar just to pick a fight, or, like, be that I want to talk to your manager Ugg boot style, like, angry bleach blonde stereotype, there are some people who genuinely just like to try and pick fights, and those types of people need to be identified early and given a clear message of, hey, here is how you don't, and if you can't, the door is there. I'm a really big fan of a meme I saw bouncing around on the internet, which is that hard to swallow pills meme, where it's like the hand with some pills in it. Then the second cell of it is a description. And the description that I really liked is, in order to be as inclusive as possible and welcoming as possible to an event, you have to be willing to identify and prevent bad eggs from causing problems in your community. And sometimes that means you just have to throw a bad egg in the trash. Because if you let bad people continue to be a bad egg in your community, they will sour the whole barrel. The good players will either start to think that that bad egg does is acceptable, and they'll start to mirror that, or the good players will, rightfully so, take their ball and take it elsewhere to go play. And you will lose players who could be good, positive, healthy influences and set the bar on how to treat people. Toxic communities, like toxic groups in LARPs, are, in my opinion, the biggest reason why a LARP fails, short of, obviously, a crazy owner who just causes problems. But tribalism is very much a thing, and the more that people view the game as us versus them rather than a collaborative narrative experience, and everyone working together to make a cool story, the quicker things just kind of go downhill when people start ignoring that element. So if you can't maintain your trust with your player base as an organization, then you're going to have you're screwed, basically, as far as I'm concerned. At least in the way that I want to manage a business. If my players don't trust me, then I don't know why they're playing the game, because it basically infers that they're tightrope walking and they don't have a safety net underneath them, which is terrifying.
So, right quick, Kai, can you talk about a couple of key points as to how you keep the trust with your players?
Sure. For me, I feel that, like, part of it very much was from the get-go establishing that foundation that we talked about like, everyone is here to have a good time. Everyone deserves to have a good time. Identifying the difference between needs and wants, having a clear set of rules that are not, aggressively, tyrannically bullying, just clear expectations of, like, hey, dude, maybe if this person prefers particular pronouns, you don't roll your eyes at them and scoff them when they ask you to change your language when talking with them. Like, treat people nice. Don't be a dick. It always boils down to don't be a dick. But the more that we establish these elements of, like, strengthening the way that we treat people, and even if it's just saying really obvious things but reminding people about it, it helps people not slip. And even more so, if someone does do something either intentionally or accidentally, the community at large, because they've had this reminded to them so often, and they're just aware of what the rules are for playing the game, when they see someone break those rules, I'm not saying that they will immediately point and go, burn the witch, but they'll let people know. And anytime those types of situations happen where there is a problem, you need to treat it properly. You need to approach it from different angles and make sure that you're never falling prey to having a broken stair. And I think we've described a broken stair before on this podcast, haven't we, Ryan?
Actually, we may have talked about it as a tangent or an aside, but we've never actually addressed the broken stair until now.
Do you want me to go over it real quick? Because I know we're running out of time here.
I think this is important enough that it merits time to talk about.
I don't know what it is, so please enlighten me.
All right, so a broken stair is kind of like if you've got an apartment or a house or whatever, you're living somewhere or you visit someone's house and you get welcomed into their house and they're like, "Hey, hi, how are you doing? Like there's there's food in the fridge, there's all these nice things, like make yourself at home. Come explore the house with me." And as you're walking up the stairs, you step on this one particular step and it like creaks really loudly, or it just cracks and breaks, or like it's got a nail sticking out of it and you stand on the nail and it hurts you. And the person that's invited you into their home turns around and goes, "Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to warn you." And like I keep getting around to getting rid of that, or I keep getting around to doing that, or like it's an old house, so it's got some idiosyncrasies. That is a broken stair. Now apply that to a human, or humans and an event owner. Like me as an event owner, I'm the owner of the house. The broken stair is someone that is a little grabby, or like really likes to hit on people who are underage, or a whole bunch of these other gross contexts that might be way less than the nasty examples that I'm using there. But those exist. They genuinely do exist. I have been to LARPs where there have been problematic people who like they'll yell at you and explode and things like that, and they get away with it because they've done it so much. And that's
or they get away with it because like the character or the person is so powerful that they feel like losing that person is going to sink that LARP.
Yeah, like the leader of a big faction, for example, if the leader likes to throw their weight around and bully people and basically be like, turn around to the event organizers and like, "What are you going to do?" Even if they verbally say it or not, even if it's implied through just certain things, like, "Oh yeah, my faction loves me. If I ever quit this game, like they'd all go with me," kind of thing. That's a threat. And me personally, anyone that threatens my business in that way, I'm going to just flat out tell to leave. So being mindful of broken stairs and being willing to just fix that freaking step to make sure people are safe is paramount. And it's a very clear example of a LARP that might be getting out of control.
What if you are aware that someone in your game is a broken stair? Or like, what are the actions that they need to do when they realize that? Do they talk to the owner? Do they go outside of the system? What is the proper procedure, if there is one? I realize that it's going to be very different for every game or every situation, but is there a general procedure in the case that is a situation you have to deal with?
So there is a difference between like perceived threats and threats that are actually like actively hurting you. And as an event runner, you do have to balance those types of things. You do have to analyze everything, and you do have to talk to everyone involved and get every side of the story before making decisions. But if you are facing someone that is absolutely like bullying you at game or causing a problem, and you don't feel like you're going to be heard by staff, your options are pretty much to either try and talk to staff anyway, like go straight to the top, or talk to someone that you feel in staff will believe you. Or go to some of your friends in the game that you feel are influential and ask them to speak on your behalf. Honestly, so in these kinds of environments, I don't like the ideas of people being problems like that. And I try to do what I can to make sure those things don't exist. But like people running the game need to have knowledge of what is going on. Sometimes they spend their entire time just sitting in a back room telling monsters what to dress up in and how to go off and fight things, and like planning things. And like I've definitely had games where I've never played an NPC. All I've done is just stay in NPC land and help just manage the logistics and organizational aspects of the game. And that does sometimes make me feel very kind of out of touch. So when I get the opportunity, I throw on some NPC garb and I go walk around the town and get a feel for things happening. But as always, as an event runner, you only have so many pairs of eyes that are going to tell you what's going on. So having someone that's willing to actually help you like that, at least from my perspective, is a very useful thing. So if you see someone that's getting bullied, if you see something that gives you concern, mention it. You don't have to necessarily like run in like some kind of caped crusader and apprehend the villains. But if you make other people know about it that are in positions of authority within the organization, they can make a note of it. They can detect patterns of it. For all you know, this person that you see do a vile thing, or maybe not a vile thing, they just kind of push someone's boundaries just a little, and you're like, well, that was really uncomfortable. But whatever happens, if you bring it up and you mention it to the people running the event, at least myself as an event organizer, I make notes a lot. And when I hear about people being a problem, I make notes about that. And if I start getting one person having a whole host of problems, even if they are minor things, but they're collecting together. And then I'm like, okay, this person is not breaking the same rule over and over again. This person just is seeming kind of flippant to the rules. So obviously, I need to go talk to that person. Does that kind of make sense? I know I'm kind of rambled off a little bit, but
it sounds great. I like just kind of recalling back to a difficulty that I've had before at a vampire organization. They actually have a player advocate, I guess, if you will, like someone who's not necessarily the organization, in case you're fearful of talking to someone who's directly part of the org, but somebody who you feel like is on your side and can give you kind of give an objective report back to the organization in case you're fearful of talking to someone. I think that's also pretty cool, like having eyes out there, like you suggested, Kai.
You know what's, and I absolutely agree with that. You know what's interesting? In Japanese business, a lot of Japanese business companies have one like American or English speaking employee. That in normal Japanese culture, it's very rude to question the people who are higher up the food chain in a business environment. And so what they do is a bunch of the employees, there's this person who has this position that regular employees go to and tell this, like American or whatever, about their problems that they're facing in the company. And that person, that noisy American is the dubbing term that I've heard before on it. This noisy American is the one that goes off to the bosses and kicks up a stink and is like, you need to take care of this. I've got a bunch of angry employees who have told me that they're unhappy about it. And yeah, like that is absolutely a way that business can be managed. For me personally, I'm comfortable if there are people on my team that people feel more comfortable talking to than me. That's fine. But I try my best to always take everyone seriously when they come to me about a problem. I'm going to give it a real look. That doesn't mean instantly like, oh, I don't like this person, I'm just going to say something and try and get them banned. Like, I look into these things. I take it very seriously. But my goal is always to protect people.
The other thing that I would like to say, well, like a couple of things. One of them is, so I think the term is loud American.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the only reason why, yeah, no problem. The only reason why I know that is because for a Chinese company, that was my job.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, my job was to look at deals, look at scripts, and kind of go, okay, no, you shouldn't do this. I actually used that position in real life when I was looking at a very misogynist script, like horribly misogynist. And there were people in the business that said, we should invest in this. This would make money. And I went, okay, do you really want to lose 50% of your audience doing this? This is absolutely horrible. But no one else in that culture felt like they could say that because their job was to never question their superiors and also make money. Yeah. So my job was to look at that and go, no, this is bad, and then eventually convince them. And it's a hard position too, because not everyone, because like, yes, people can come to you, but then people will also scapegoat you, which is like an unfortunate thing. And I realize that that's a thing that, we are a social group and we're not immune to like social pressure when it comes, or like we're afraid to rat on our friends, when it comes to like community things. But everything that you've said, Kai, is very spot on, and it's very necessary to hear, even if it is difficult sometimes for us to enact, because we know that what you do, Kai, is not just provide a gaming experience, but provide a sanctuary. And sometimes we feel like a lot of us do take that for granted when we go to a LARP event. But there's a lot of things that are not fun about doing that, but necessary if you want to keep your community safe.
The last bit of advice I have, and this is as an event organizer, if you genuinely don't believe that a game will look after you or has your best interest in heart, like there's a difference between need versus want. If your character wants to get a whole bunch of rich things and you're screaming at the event organizers because they're not making your character rich enough so you can't afford things, that is far less of a concern than like, hey, I genuinely am worried because this person has physically threatened me in real life. Those two things are very different. But if you genuinely believe that you've got a serious problem and your game that you're playing is not going to listen to you, then sometimes your only course there is to pick up your ball and go somewhere where you're appreciated. Because honestly, trust is a very important aspect. And if you are expending your energy on something like an event that is not treating you properly, and you have tried to communicate that with them, like the actual attempt at a two-way conversation, then it's like any kind of abusive relationship. Why would you continue to date someone who is abusive to you? Why would you continue to go to a business that is abusive to you? Why would you buy food from a restaurant that spits in your food all the time?
I think in the past, the answer would have been because it's the only one that will serve me. We are lucky right now that with LARP as it is, there are more options. So those excuses in the past would not have I understood why people would be afraid, but now we are very blessed that we have more options and more places and more communities that we can go to when other ones don't serve us anymore. With that, it is time for us to wrap up.
Yeah, this was a long one.
But
needed.
Yes, it was.
It is long and needed. So before we go, I want to thank our Patreon supporters for sticking by us, making this content, especially to our friends at Geeky Tees, at Twin Mask, our friends Treasure, Talon, and Aaron. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys are amazing.
Yes.
I just realized there's one
ahead.
last thing, and this is going to be less than 60 seconds, I promise.
Sure, go for it.
One of the things, so we talked a lot about in-game, like at-game, in-game. Honestly, a lot of the community of a LARP happens as a support net outside of game, and that can sometimes be a very strong element, having that connection between people. You're going to make friends at LARP, or at least I hope you do. I have made some of my closest friends through LARP. I demonstrate quite clearly to the two people that I am doing this podcast with. And you will meet amazing, wonderful people who can potentially change your life. But bear in mind that unless you're running the event, you are playing a hobby. And like any hobby, it is entirely possible for you to get stimulated on it. I know people who have had an addiction to Magic cards so bad that they had trouble paying rent because all they would do was play and buy Magic cards, and they would neglect other aspects of their life. Part of looking to ask for help is to make sure that you're actually being healthy to yourself and knowing when sometimes you need to unplug. And you need to not worry about the game and focus on you as a person. So yeah, always remember it's a hobby. A really, really cool hobby, but...
And an expensive one at that.
It can be, can it?
Yeah. All right. Kai, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find my company, Dystopia Rising NorCal, under a slightly different website. It is dystopiarisingnocal.com. We also have Dystopia Rising Northern California on Facebook that you can go to. And actually, I highly recommend that because we just recently worked with a wonderful videographer that we have mentioned before called Landon. And he has made an absolutely astounding video of the game that I run. Even if post-apocalyptic LARPs are not your thing, please check it out. It's pretty cool. And all of that footage is just from one of our games. And like we even went so far as to like buy some licensed music for it and stuff. It's really, really cool. But that's on the Dystopia Rising Northern California Facebook page. And then you can find the regular kind of art and nerdy things that I get up to by going on Twitter or Instagram under Yokai Props.
All right, Sin.
Oh man, this is going to be long.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know, right? So we just made the announcement at WonderCon for LA by Night on Geek and Sundry. That's the vampire tabletop role-playing game that I play. We'll be doing season 3. Don't know when it's coming back yet, but it's coming back soon. Also just announced that Sirens is going to be playing at D&D Live, so stay tuned for those details. But social media, you can find me on Instagram under Cynthia__Marie, that is 2 underscores, or on Twitter at Syndancer. I am a heck of a lot more active on there now, and will just about reply to pretty much anyone when I'm not working. So yeah, come and hang out.
All right. And this is Ryan Omega. You could find me on Facebook and Instagram under Ryan Omega. You can find me on Twitter under Ryan OMGA. You can find this podcast that you're listening to now on other things. So if you're used to finding it on Radio Public or iTunes or Spotify, you will find us in other venues as well. You could find my show, Blank Slate, on Scabby Rooster VOD. So that would be twitch.tv/Scabby Rooster.
So good.
And I know, and I've also been told that Knox and the group are actually going to release the episodes on YouTube.
Yay!
So that way that it will go past, because Twitch has a limit of 2 months before it takes things off the archive. Yeah. So it will actually be permanently on YouTube. Season 2 is slated to begin on April 30th. I'll have a few people from season 1 back, including Prince Gideon, because it's kind of important right now.
I think you mean King.
Oh,
I don't know, maybe.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. By the way, Ryan, did you intend the pun there? Blank Slate season 2 is slated.
You really would point that out.
Always and forever.
Yes, Mr. Punmeister. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, people on our Patreon, for supporting us. Thank you for all listeners listening to this incredibly deep and poignant podcast. And until next time, bye.
Bye.